Glory to Jesus Christ. Thank you for joining us. The aim of this class is to gain the art of spiritual life through the teaching of Holy Bishop Ignatius Brianchaninov. This study has already transformed many lives, and we hope your life will be transformed too.
So welcome back to our study or formation class. We are going to continue on page 214, the first paragraph. But before, I was thinking about last class we had, and I think that we have to, probably I need to remind that I think we were talking about this few years ago, that we have to be aware of one thing when we read these texts of Holy Fathers. And what is that? I would... Okay, welcome. I would put it this way, that there is one saying which repeats, many monks, all these teachers, they repeat that. It was difficult for me to find out exactly who said this, but it was said in various variations by many. But I think, if I remember well, it was one of these elders of the Optiman monastery, famous Russian monastery, and these elders. And a disciple asked one of these elders that, will monk reach the level of these great holy fathers of the past? And he gave answer which goes like this, that the biggest saints of present time, we can compare them to beginners of these holy fathers. And he said that well, this like radicalism, how they live this life with Christ and gospel at that time, he said, well, it is almost impossible to reach this level now. But he reminded that, well, but God sees that, and even those who struggle now in these conditions will get a reward which belongs to them. The same way it was said that well, if Christians in present time, in this time, are able to keep commandments, so in heaven they will be compared to great warriors, spiritual warriors, because of this wave or ocean of temptation and bad influence from the world. Now, we have to be aware now that if we are talking about and we are reading these words, and Brianchaninov offers us words of these holy fathers of the past, and we have to be aware that they are talking about these heights we do not even understand many times. We can try that, well, we understand, but actually this is just intellectual understanding if we have, but not through experience. So many times these things we are reading are really beyond our understanding, real understanding. And because of that, we measure their words through our experience. And it can cause tensions. It can cause this difficulty, even like resistance to receive these words properly. So we have to be aware of that, well, it's difficult for us that we cannot judge these words through our understanding of this world. We need to have some kind of piece of humility to accept, okay, I am not able to understand this. I'm talking now about this question about marriage, which was raised last time. And it's difficult for us to understand that the man left his family and wife and went to monastery. But those who love God, it's really, there is no barrier for them. This love to God pushes them to really extremes. But we have to understand at their time, everybody totally understood that. It was not scandal, it was inspiration. For example, if I compare that, if somebody says today, okay, I am making decision to be virgin up to marriage, they are sacrifice. So I would compare that how we somehow look at this promise now with admiration. I would compare is how people at that time look at those who went to monastery. It's just our understanding of things, because of lack of these heroic acts of love to God, are missing in our world. So we don't have this. We don't understand this. It's difficult for us to understand. And so I would like to ask that, well, keep this in mind that, well, we are talking about, or even these examples are from ancient times, when, from those who tried to love God in a heroic way, which we cannot imagine now. I think that if we keep this in our mind, so then we can avoid some kind of trying to come to understanding. I would say we should leave this as a mystery, and to ask God, well, let me understand that correctly. Does it make sense? Because we are touching really world of these spiritual giants, and it is very challenging for us in this world, but this challenge is good for us, but we cannot expect that we can put our understanding of spiritual things to their level of understanding spiritual things, and so we have to approach it a little bit with humility. All right. If there is no comment, we can start. No comments. All right. Sure.
Saint Agathon, a monk of Cestus famous for his gift of spiritual discernment, was once asked about carnal passions. He answered thus: "Go and admit your strength as nothing but dust before God, and you will find peace." Other fathers answered this question similarly, and what a proper answer it is. If the transformation of our nature can only be effected by God, then admitting that original sin has corrupted our nature and humbly praying for healing and the renewal of our nature by its Creator is the strongest, most effective weapon in the battle against our nature. This weapon weakens the trust we have in ourselves, which is often a result of excessive and immoderate physical ascesis.
It's good advice here in this paragraph, because and it's very important for us to understand this. because and he will go further to make it more clear. In our effort to come to purity of heart and mind, well, there is a need to put to our life some tools, ascetical tools, which will give us ability to reach this purity. For example, without fasting, you cannot reach nothing. It's one spiritual law. Without denouncing world, you cannot make any progress. Without forgiveness to others, you are blocked and there is no movement in your soul. Your soul is dead. And I mention now only several conditions, for growth. So we need these tools which we practice to get somehow to our life through these exercises correct settings in which we can grow. And now he's talking, there are a lot of temptations, a lot of these dead streets or blind streets, that there we can stop, we can be blocked. But he is talking now about our effort when we're trying to use these tools. For example, I will take the fast. If somebody is strong and has strong will, the person can fast really radically. But still, there will be no progress. The reason is that the person can be entrapped in this thought, I can do this. That the person thinks that I have power to manage that. And immediately in this position, there is pride which blocks everything. Then, and we have to avoid this. And he's talking about that we can do really. We can put really huge effort to exercise these practices, but it has to be connected with humility and with this acknowledgement that without help from above we cannot do anything. This is why these Holy Fathers, they always remind us moderation in everything. Moderation in everything. It means that moderation, but it is not easy way. We have to understand. Moderation is not to go to extremes, to lose our power, to our strength, physical strength, for example, or to be exhausted. Moderation is to know my limits, reach them, and then but still give this to keep in mind that this is only my part of work, that God does bigger work in me. Samuel?
It sort of just struck me that this paragraph seems to be saying that, obviously they asked him about carnal passions, and his answer was, admit you have no strength. So through humility, a practice of humility, we're attacking a different passion. Is that kind of what he's?
Yes, but this counsel is especially for those who are strong. If we take this story from last time, that the man who had problems, he was a strong man. So the fathers of this monastery, they gave him advice, very strict fasting and this rule, because he was strong. And he was following that, and while he didn't reach anything, and he became sick. So these are like warning for those who has this mental strength and even physical strength to go very far in asceticism. And it's a reminder that because there is this danger of temptation to think that because of my strength, because of my asceticism, my work, I can defeat this passion. I can reach purity. So we can forget God's grace, which is necessary for cleaning. That makes sense? Yes, so we cannot forget humility. Okay, go ahead.
Does it mean the same thing if you're not strong, if you're weak? I mean,
Well, there is another danger there. Good point. That we should not think that now, because we should be humble, that we will be doing nothing, saying that we are weak. Because this is another extreme. It's easy to say, well, I am weak, I'm just human. And I even don't try the easiest way of fast, for example. I don't try to go often for confession, don't try to use other tools which can bring me purity of mind and heart, just admitting that I am weak. And yes, it might be humility there, that I can say this in humility, but what is missing is this desire to really use that strength I have to fight against this passion. That this always we have to understand these tools, ascetical tools, as I think that what I liked the most was that those tools make our soul prepared to receive God's grace. That through this my activity, I am preparing my soul to receive grace I need. So it is not a goal. So if I'm fasting and I think that now everything will be done, no, I have to make effort. But everybody at our own limits. And again, these limits, we should not set up okay, what is comfortable for me. It should be challenge. It should be something it's not easy for me that I have to fight, but what is doable without harm on my health, mental and physical. Does it make sense? Does it answer your question?
I thought it's ironic, or it's strange that a weak person doesn't have that problem that a strong person would face. I was just trying to, I was trying to ask, does a weak person have a different problem? And I think you answered it, in that they may not, have they might not be truly pursuing the things they ought to.
Yeah, I would say that there is another extreme, that this kind that they say weak, let's call them weak people. I think another position, which is comfortable position, that there is usually it is temptation to do nothing, just to wait, and to, it's easy to admit I am weak, God help me, but even I am weak, I still can do something. And this is another extreme, which is not good. So, like, and again, I would like to. It's always good to. It's sometimes difficult to find good limits for ourselves. It should be challenging, but always I have to. It's easy for those who come regularly in confession, because through this they say, well, I'm going to do this. And usually, if there is, if it is sign of extreme, this way or this way, so usually the confessor says, well, you have to push a little bit your limits if it is too easy on you, or you can hear, well, take it easier, it's not for you. So it is always that we don't trust even in that these limits to ourselves. We try to offer them for judgment to avoid some kind of extreme what we are doing. Okay, Christian.
I'm going to keep quoting this book because it's such a good book, but The Monastic Wisdom, one by St. Joseph the Hesychist. He talks about this, and he talks in a few letters that he writes about weakness, and basically, to paraphrase it, he says, there's a difference between weakness and laziness.
Sure.
Recognizing that you're weak, but like you said, continuing on, recognizing you deserve this, but you're still going to continue on, rather than, like you said, say, oh, woe is me, God, come help me, and just throwing your hands up off the wheel. But I can't remember the exact example he used. He told the story, but that's just what I was trying to get at.
Well, I think that the biggest challenge which comes out from this paragraph for us is, I would say, it's hidden in the question: do you have some kind of rule in your life you follow? Did you set up some kind of limits when you are trying to do? Because, usually, and this is the problem of present time, I think, people don't have this. Maybe they, look, what you can hear, like, what are resolution for the Great Fast many times. What can you hear very, very often? It's funny, I would say. Even I give credit to those who make something, like, for example, they do something, but if you judge is in the light of these instructions for spiritual life, is nothing. Very often you can hear very often that I am giving up coffee for Great Fast. It's really very, if you now, in light of teaching Holy Fathers, it's silly. Because actually, you mentioned Joseph Hesychist. When they were before a vigil, it was like 8 hours of prayer. So he always gave coffee to monks to be awake and to pray. So if I am giving up coffee, so it might be that I'm going to, especially I might afflict my attention in prayer. So I would say, let's have coffee before prayer, but pray more, But it is nothing, like that. So there is not a real challenge there, and we live very comfortable our spiritual life. There is need for some kind of strictness, and it's missing. And I think that the challenge for present time is to find out ways how we can return back those things which were really present and they are connected with spiritual life. And without those things, we cannot move on. You know? All right. The comments, we can continue another long paragraph.
Saint Cassian of Rome noticed that the carnal passion of necessity battles the soul until that moment when the soul recognizes that the victory is beyond its power. When the soul understands that victory cannot be achieved through its own willpower and labors if the Lord will not send his protection and help. This Holy Father spent a considerable amount of time among the Cestus Fathers, and he was filled with the treasure of their teaching. As we speak about purity, we find it essentially necessary to speak to the ignorance of our time, so full of false knowledge, and to stretch out a helping hand to those who are drowning and suffering in confusion, despair, and sorrow as a result of their ignorance. A very great many people who desire to live a pious life are completely shocked when carnal thoughts and desires suddenly arise in them. They look at this as something strange, something that should not be, and they fall into hopelessness, often preferring to lead the God-pleasing life, thinking themselves incapable of leading it. This is a most mistaken self-assessment. Our nature is in a state of corruption. In this state of corruption, carnal desires are natural. In fact, it is impossible for them not to appear. And so you should not be shocked and distressed at the appearance of these thoughts, fantasies, and feelings of lust. These are essentially unavoidable. Every person is subject to them. Even the saints were subject to them.
It's good paragraph, isn't it? And he captures what we feel, and it's our experience. And especially this sentence that a very great many people who desire to live a pious life are completely shocked, and carnal thoughts and desires suddenly arise in them. This is common, and like from my personal pastoral experience is more here than in Slovakia, is that there are people who somehow return back after many years to the church, and and they had this hope: I return to the church, and all my problems will be solved, and all my children will return back to the church too, my grandchildren will be baptized, and I will be in the church with all my family, and all these problems will be gone. And they stay in the church for 6 months and nothing, and they are disappointed, and actually they stop to attend more, or they stop trying, because they somehow this feeling that, well, it doesn't work. And it is really, I blame this situation on some kind of fashion which was brought even through some bad novels, which we call Christian novels, or bad Christian movies, which we call Christian, but they are not, because they are giving false understanding of spiritual life and life is Christ. Because it's really painful to watch some movies when everything is bad, and then suddenly that person receives Christ and everything is good immediately, everything is fixed. I said, this fairy tale, this is not reality, and this cannot bring people to Christ. For a moment, probably, there can be this desire, but this experience will come. Those who want to live pious life, after a while they are completely shocked that this temptation didn't disappear, that this problem stays, and there is difficulty. So I think that he gives us good like advice in this how to take our spiritual life. In reality, we have to remember our fallen state. We have to remember that while passions they must, as he says, they must appear in us. We will need to fight with them in our life. We have to be prepared for that. Like there is a saying amongst that you can trust your body when your body is in the casket. Otherwise not. Don't trust your body, because anytime the passions can arise from body, even there are like you reach soul holiness that you live 20 years without problem, and then suddenly it can come. So, and one thing is that if we remember this for ourselves, that passions are in us, and we have to be careful every day. If we really come to this understanding, so then something happens. We will start to see others in different light. Because if we see passions who are visible in their life in some moments, we will know what is going on, and we will be very merciful, because it will be just a reminder for us that how many times we failed in our life, how many times we were victims of these passions, how many times we lost this battle, and so we will be not very quick to judge them. Actually, we will be asking God for grace for them to really find a way how to receive God's grace, how to be open for God's grace. This is very, very important message he gives us, and we should remember that. Samuel?
This brings on sort of a associated topic of trying to be a friend to someone who's in the middle of a struggle, and sort of trying to coach, or at least I don't know if you could call it, not accountability per se, but just trying to walk alongside them. And I guess I found one thing, that people often have mixed motives. So they'll tell you they're trying to do one thing, but they're not always. That's not the purest reason why they're struggling. Could be just because they want to look better to their community. I found that out. But I guess I almost feel like they try, and then they hit a letdown. And if you're more or less pretty involved with them, and you've got more details about what they're going through, you can kind of feel responsible, like you almost like I gave too much advice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean, and there is I think it was Isaac Syrian. He says that he compares this person who is somehow in the problems. You see somebody who is in this, what you describe, under this rule of passions. So I think that, if I remember well, he compares this person as a person who is in the swamp, going down. And he says, if you want to help him, just use a long stick. The reason is that this long stick, it means that you cannot be involved in that close way, because if you are, he can take you down the same swamp. Now, what is this long stick, you know? What did I say before? Cane?
You said stick.
Stick?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is that long stick? What is that? One thing is, this, especially this prayer. When I cry for this, my brother or sister, and I'm begging God for his state, you know, and I cry in that way that almost it is my state of soul. I identify with him. I am merciful. I almost feel pain of this person. But the arena is not somehow to get closer to relationship with that person. This arena, how we are helping, is more on this prayer in front of God. Or we can give good book. We can offer liturgy for the person. We can really do a lot of things, which is this long stick to help the person. But if you are trying to be involved in this problem, at first it is many times I would say something, but I don't know a word for that in English, that you really believe in your power. I can do this, you know, so you trust yourself so much that you think that I can do this. This pride. And many Holy Fathers, they say, well, if you are not pure, if you are suffering, don't even touch that, you know, because it can pull you down. So if you are fighting this passion, so don't try to help, you know, with somebody, because your disease can be worse.
Justified confidence.
Yes, thank you. You will be my helper. Okay? You got promoted.
What?
You got promoted. Promotion. Thank you. Patrick?
I was just saying, I was thinking what you're saying is that we have to know our own limitations. This is a true story that I'll just say, like Mrs. Smith was married and had a very happy marriage. Her good friend and neighbor, Mrs. Jones, was having trouble in her marriage. Every night Mrs. Smith went over and spent time with Mrs. Jones, trying to help her with her. In the end, Mrs. Smith got divorced and Mrs. Jones got divorced.
Yeah.
She got sucked into that vortex of negativity.
Yeah.
And didn't mean to, but thought she could help more than she could. So I mean, even I have a degree in counseling, and I still have to know when I have to say to somebody, I'm not the right person for you. You need to go to this person because I can't help you.
Yeah.
And it's beyond, I can do this for you, but you need somebody more skilled than I am. And that's in the best of intentions. We can just overstep our abilities and cause more harm than good.
Yeah. And another thing, I said it last time, but it's good to remind us here that we should not be afraid of, you know, again, this is something what like present time pushes us, that help our neighbor, and we try to be involved. We try to be loving and close to the person, but many times this is the worst thing we can do. I bring this example of that priest who was asked, who was praised by one family that he helped them in time of crisis. But they said they praised him, they were thankful, but they told that they had just one reservation. He said, but he was a little bit cold. You know, he was like, he helped, but well, some kind of coldness was there. But when I was reading this story, I made it very short, but I said, well, very wise priest, because he knew that if he is involved more, almost that he becomes like a friend to those people, he would be not able to help them. Because sometimes you have to have this distance, and this is why I would ask you to understand priests if they are not open to friendships. It doesn't mean that our deeper friends. It doesn't mean that they are not loving you. It's just something. If they want to help, they have to keep that, and it causes loneliness a little bit. But it is my experience. From my own experience, I can tell that when I make this mistake, I always felt that, well, I am not sufficient. I am not able to help as I wish. So, and it is even this example is from like priestly ministry, but it is a way how we are approaching others too. Remember that many times we cannot help even with this long stick if we are really somehow trying to be lovingly involved, in the life of others. Because our advice, we even would not give this advice, because of false love, because we would not like to hurt somebody, and well, does it make sense? I don't say now that be cold to everyone, let's not to take to extreme, just to keep that healthy distances. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. Any other comments?
When he's saying this is the most mistaken self-assessment. I don't have to put the question in, but where does the spiritual father fall into this? Because when you're doing the self-assessment, there's a fine line between self-assessing as that I can do it, I'm prideful in certain way, and there is the self-assessment that, well, I will give my will to my spiritual father, and I'll let it be until I speak to him. Because what he's talking about here is that they look at this as something strange, something that they should not be. So it means they already went with their thoughts much deeper than they should have.
Yeah, I think that it's not easy to give answer for that, because if they have spiritual father and they reveal to him, okay, I am so shocked, it doesn't work, and I see that even I try to live pious life, I am attacked nonstop by passion. It seems nothing is working, and I'm losing hope. If the person tells this to the spiritual father, so he would give medicine, step by step, to take the soul out from this state, and to give consolation and show the way. And again, without that, you can go to this position that, well, you will give up.
So you would say that after the shock that I can't do it myself, we should run to spiritual father.
Sure.
Rather than start thinking about it and...
Sure. And
become
usually,
despaired.
yeah, and usually this is a problem which comes out, which probably it's missing in formation of children, because when they are growing, so these passions are not alive too much. When they are coming to the age of not reason, when they try to they are getting to mature and their bodies awaken suddenly, and they have this like storm of passions, bodily passions especially, and they are overwhelmed by that. And usually they don't to parents about that, they don't to a spiritual father about that, because they are shocked and they don't know what to do. And this is something what is neglected. Usually we don't prepare our children for that. And what is preparation? Saint Theophan de Reclus, in his Path of Salvation, he talks about this how to raise children. And in one point, he says, the best friend of your child must be spiritual father. You know, this is like way of formation that, well, many times as a natural parents, well, it might be some kind of barrier. But if you make sure that, well, they have this understanding that spiritual father is their best friend, so they will have ability to share this state with him. Or if he notices, then usually he will notice if this relationship is there, he can notice and he can bring consolation even without they would tell something. But this connection causes that their children will, or these teenagers will be listening. You know, and through this many souls can be saved, I would say. It's worth it. If you don't have this book, the Theophan de Reclus, the Path to Salvation, especially you who are parents and you are get this book, read these instructions, because those are very good instructions how to raise children. You know, but it doesn't. It goes from the beginning. You know, that there was step by step. You are talking and well, you can find many things which make sense when you read that. Christian?
I find it especially that, and this is just coming from me going to a public school, especially being around other people that are going through, hundreds of other people that are going through the exact same thing, rather than, you know, being homeschooled. You have your parents instilling these values on you. You have your parents taking you to the spiritual father who's able to help you. But when you're at a place every day where there are people going through the same thing and they're all going through that same, like you said, shock of it all. So now they're opening up to each other about it, and they're giving each other advice on how to handle it, rather than going to your spiritual father and getting his advice on how to deal with it. So I guess my question is how do you deal with it when there's so many people around you? And well, maybe you're not able to go to your spiritual father because of that. You're not, because you have so many obligations with, you know, schooling and stuff like that.
So in the school.
Homeschooling.
No, I was in public school. It was a choice that I had to make every single day. who do I want to hang out with, what part of the school I want to be in. It's a choice every single day. That's it, and it's I have actually a good quote. I was waiting to give it to it, but Father Archimandrite Maximus, he says that be careful that when you say I'm too busy school-wise, outside of the school, that you don't really mean that you don't believe in the possibility of my own transformation in Christ. If you choose school stuff over seeing your spiritual father just because a couple of your friends are there, you're missing the point. And I played football for 2 years in high school, and I regret it fully because I missed every Friday liturgy, not even Sunday, not Saturday, weekday liturgy. I missed it because we had football games. And looking back, I regret it. So it is a choice, and it's a daily choice what you choose. It's really God or nothing. Oh, sorry.
Well, but you ask about the first part was about that what you to do with this big crowd of people who share, trying to find advice to each other, correct? You cannot do anything with that. The only thing what you can do is just to take care of your soul. We don't have power over other souls. If we start to think that I can be a savior, we will fail. It doesn't mean that, we should not talk about faith or something, but to have some kind of this understanding that I can bring somebody to faith. It's not good. Only God can give gift of faith. I can prepare the way. And here we have to be very careful because we can really cause big damage. I don't know if I said this story before, but if I said it was a long time ago. When I was first year in my parish, it was shortly after we got freedom, so there was a lot of activities, going on a religious field. And I was approached by a group of young people from capital city of Bratislava. I knew some of them. They were not my friends, but I knew them. There was a community of young people whom were trying to meet and to somehow to live spiritual life. So they make this some kind of program to bring more people to God or to make faith stronger a little bit. So they went from parish to parish and they were offering. They called priests who they know and to give this program, in parishes to bring people to more authentic faith. So they approached me and I said, sure, come. So they came and they gave this program in our parish. And then they spent, in rectory, they spent night there. It was horrible night, because, so many young people in a small rectory, and but under discussion to almost to morning. And then I realized, he died, that man already, is one of them. Stanley, they call him Stanley. I told him, look, it's useless what you are doing. It's useless. There will be no power in that because you are not living this stuff you are preaching. You are not living that, and people can see that. You know, so we have to be very careful that until I cannot give what I don't have. I mean, you can give some kind of information from the book, you know, but it will have no power. The power which transforms or touches hearts, it comes only from those things which are given as a testimony of my experience. You know, that we have to keep in mind.
When I was coming back to my faith, when I was in my young 20s, I was on fire for the faith, but every single person I was associated with was the exact opposite, because I was coming out of that environment. And I had a very good holy monk that just passed today, this morning actually. And he started asking me some questions. He says, what are they talking about? What are they asking you to do? Where are they asking you to come? What kind of conversations you have? And he says, every single one of those conversations are not about Christ. You are not improving their life, and they're not going to improve your life. He says, do you understand that's the blind leading the blind? Do you wish to lose your vision? And that always stuck with me. You know, do I want to become one of the blind? I could very easily spend a lot of time with them and, you know, go back to the way I was when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the situation you're a little bit stuck in right now, because you're growing and you're being drawn away.
Christian, you know, I just need to tell you something about and to reminder for us all that we have to be aware of some kind of really power from above, which comes out from those who are trying to live authentic Christian life. And even your presence there will be something what will give inspiration on somehow it's this, who knows about this mystical, mysterious ways of Christ, how he touches people, but for sure he will help others through you, even not through talking, just through your presence. And we have to be aware of that God works this way.
I'm not trying to say that I'm like the social bug of the school. I keep to myself pretty much all day, besides when I'm, you know, hanging out with people around. She's laughing because she's one of the people I hang out with. But it's just when it becomes, like I said, I keep to myself. I don't talk to people at school. I do whatever I need to do. I pray, whatever. But it's just when it becomes unavoidable. When people are egging you, pushing you, egging you to do this, do that, do this, do that, talk about this, talk about that, you know, and there's no way around it. Like, what do you do? What do you tell them when they want to talk about this, but you don't want to, you know, this passion that they're having, or this whatever that you don't want to talk about, you don't want to think about, because you're trying to stay. Well, what do you do?
Well, look, one thing is, this is a good opportunity, you know, like this concept, you know, like we were growing like through tradition that before many years, maybe now it is more further here than, because we were probably a little bit behind in Slovakia with, or we were not, because of communism, we were not afflicted many influences which caused damage here. So we are a little bit protected. So maybe this was something natural was coming. That for example, I was in high school probably, And when I heard first time about spiritual father, that well, I need to ask my spiritual father about that. I said, what? A son of priest, and I didn't know that. But then I realized actually that I had my spiritual father. He was my confessor. We went to him like on a regular basis. So, well, I didn't realize that he is my spiritual father. This priest who hears my confession. But it was something that was like punch for me, and I started to ask, and something new was revealed to me step by step, and it goes to deeper and deeper to understanding until now. And sometimes, if you know that a person is Catholic or Orthodox, you can tell him, look, you should talk to your spiritual father about that. And it can be this impulse. You don't give some kind of wisdom, but you give this impulse I got, and it was beneficial for me. You can give them impulse for them. But actually, I think that this is something what somehow has to be renewed, in our Christians' families, especially. It should be the place. It should be in the raising of children. They should understand, that well, look, if it is natural, if a father or mother says in presence of children, well, this is something I need to talk with my spiritual father about. It will become natural for children to do the same. This is something what, and now I don't want to put this role, spiritual father, that one of monks, he had Zachariah. He made this example that because he is spiritual father for many, and he said that usually when somebody new becomes his spiritual child, they are so zealous there, and he says, I got a once phone call, one man husband called me, Father, I cannot make decision to buy or to not to buy fridge. And his answer, he gave advice, very good, smart. Ask your wife. So it means that it should be this role spiritual father is for this situation, especially connected with spiritual life, serious situation where it is not clear for me how to act, a situation. And really, many times we should have this ability to use that, like in a situation with questions, that well, I'm going to ask it, and to really through this to teach children that if they have a problem, it will be natural. Okay, my parents usually ask spiritual father about that, so I can do this, and this is, I think, big help for next generation, because you will protect them against many things. Okay, one last comment.
Well, I think it goes along with what Craig was saying, that as hard as it may be when you're in high school, when you get in these groups and you have these friends, I think that you need to, if you're in that situation that he's talking about, that as hard as it may be, you need to distance yourself from those people. If they're not, like you said, if you're not talking about Christ, and then he's not helping you and you're not helping him.
Yeah.
So as hard as it may be, you need to distance yourself from the people that aren't talking about and on the same path that you're on. You have to get with those like-minded people that are all wanting the same thing.
Sure.
To be closer to Christ.
You cannot call them friends if they don't bring you closer to Christ.
Right.
So one thing, and we shouldn't be, just one thing is that what you said, we should not be tied with some kind of false understanding of law, because there's a good advice for monks. Don't be in a company with a monk who is lazy. Avoid company of that monk. So for monks, if they have these rules, how much we have to avoid things, people who are putting us to temptation. One thing. Another thing is, if we want to think that, well, we will be alone, we should trust God, who said, if you give up father, mother, brother and sister, property, you will get 100 times more in this earth and eternal life to this. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please share it with those who might like to be enriched by this teaching of Holy Bishop Ignatius. If you live in our area, we would love if you could join us for our study in person on Monday nights at 7 p.m. at St. Nicholas Byzantine Catholic Church in Barberton, Ohio. Thank you and God bless.